the globe, wherever you are. It's a beautiful morning here in Sweden, where I am. I'm your host for this session. I'm Martin, and we have Lena as well, and also Robert Matei from the core team helping out today. Very warm welcome to you all. I am in Sweden. Lena, you are in
Copenhagen.
And Robert, where are you?
I'm in Bucharest, Romania.
So, this is the Culture Zone. This is a session for the Culture Zone East Asia, and we have a beautiful lineup for you today. We are going to listen to Yiheng Cheng speaking about artificial intelligence and other things. Let's get back to that. We have Mission Cho. Sorry, is it Cho? Sorry, yes, sorry.
Oh.
Speaking about the cooperative life of Korea, which will be very enlightening. And we have Anne Snick, who will be speaking about matrifocal money. So this is quite the exciting lineup. But I think first off, we should have a few words from Lena.
Yes, and they're practical things. One is that please, if you're not one of the speakers or we open the mic for everybody to ask questions, please keep your microphone turned off. And if you move around, some people are walking their dog, some people need to get breakfast. Please turn off the screen as well, because the AI in Zoom will take the most movement and the most noise and promote it. And particularly if you have a radio in the background, keep the microphone turned off, or better even, turn off the radio. So so those were some of the practicalities. We have renamed the Global Bildung Day and are now calling it the Global Meeting on Equinox, because we wanted more people to sort of join and not feel that they perhaps need to work with Bildung or education. And we have the general title, What It Means to Be Human, which is based on the book that we published in March, which has Bildung texts from around the globe. And it is also available on the internet. And then this time we did something new. We wrote a document called ABCDEFGH, What It Means to Be Human, which is sort of the backbone of the whole event. And there are 8 letters and there are 8 sessions. So we just opened with a general introduction to the document in Oceania, but now in East Asia, Yiheng Cheng will talk about the A and the B, which is artificial intelligence and biotechnology from a Chinese perspective. There are also some, the C is circularity, D is demographics, E for education, F for finance, G for global dispersion of knowledge, and H for humans and humanism. So those are the 8 things that we're bringing to attention this time with regards to what we need to pay attention to as we try to solve many of the complex problems. And the document also has some suggestions as to how we can solve the problem. So that's just sort of the intellectual backbone of this event. And if you didn't read the document, I hope you can follow the conversations anyway, because we have some great speakers, and then you can read the document afterwards if you feel like it. And then there was one more thing that I need to say, and that is that we start with a Padlet. So if you just joined, you go to the chat, and I hope somebody will share the link again, because people can't see what was in the chat before they joined. If you click on the Padlet link, you will be taken to a global map, and you can enter where you are. And then over the course of the day, as we travel around the globe, we will create this map of participants, and we will have this beautiful map of a global meeting on Equinox. So if you haven't been to the previous event, or you haven't been to the Padlet yet, please click on it. And I think in the top right-hand corner, there's a little dot with a plus sign in it. If you click on that, you can write where you are, and it will put the marker where you are. So those were the practical things from me for now.
Exactly. So, and the theme of this day has previously been Global Bildung Day, so Bildung for the movement that started over 200 years ago in Europe. now the theme has been widened. It's called What It Means to Be Human. Would you like to say a few words about that, Lena?
I mean, it was the time to uh uh I'm just gonna let Robert share his become co-host here. So I'm just gonna multitask. So the What It Means to Be Human was the title of the book about Bildung, and people actually liked it a lot when we had that as the theme in March. And so we're gonna stick with that for several episodes of the global meeting on Equinox. And then we chose a sub topic this time, which is cooperation. And speaking about cooperation, we have a question for you, and Robert is going to share that on the screen, which is what is stopping us from cooperating better? And what we would like you to do is to take a piece of paper, think about what is stopping us from collaborating better, and write it down. You get 2 minutes.
All right. I see answers are streaming into the chat. That's great. We have scarce resources, being two grown-ups. Yeah. Money, tribalism, competitive social structures, hyper-individualism, lack of attention in the way we communicate and listen, primitivism. Great. I think I can tell you right now that what we're trying to do in the background as we go today, your comments and reflections here will be gathered in a word cloud. So this meeting will be represented in that word cloud, and we will get back to that at the end of the show, right, Lena?
See, this is where my computer problem comes into play. I will hand over the word cloud task to Robert, because I don't dare leave my Windows 7 version of Zoom for opening more windows as I'm online, because I so want to spend the rest of the day with you. My real computer crashed yesterday, of all days. So so I will let Robert find a word cloud and enter the stuff from the answers from the chat, and look forward to seeing the word cloud at the end of this session.
Sounds good. All right. Yeah, there's always something. So here is the lineup of speakers today. We have three very exciting speakers. And the way the session will work is that we will be listening to 10 minutes each of our three keynote speakers. After that, we will break out into groups of about 4 people, 3 or 4 people, where we will be asking ourselves what we just heard, what we learned, and what would be a good question to ask. So first, we will have 10 plus 10 plus 10 minutes of presentations. Please gather your thoughts and see if you can find, you know, amalgamates of what you heard or different perspectives. Bring them into the breakout, reflect together, and then bring that back to the room where we can ask questions and also pose our reflections together by the later part of the session. So that's how this will work. And first off, from our three very exciting speakers today is Yiheng Cheng, who has been with the global Bildung movement for some time, speaking about how Bildung has been working, for example, in China, or the equivalent, let's say, movement or way to look at people and society. But today, and Yiheng is a member of the Club of Rome and a guest professor of Tongji University of China. Today, he's going to talk about artificial intelligence and biotechnology and these sides of, let's say, human progress or development, and how we can factor these groundbreaking new aspects of human life into planetary issues and how to solve our problems. I hope that did you justice, Yiheng, as I welcome you to the stage. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I have two topics, right? AI and biotech. Okay, I try to not follow what I have written and just a little bit history, which I started in 1980s when I finished my study or my doctorate degree in Germany. And I was a chemical engineer, educated. And at that time, if many people still remember, that started with software, try to predict the the chemical reactions or in the reactor, which how you design that. There is a software so-called Aspen, and later on Aspen Plus, Aspen Plus Plus. So during that days, actually, as a chemical engineer, we use only our thumb to make a lot of calculations. And with that software, we are able to really go into different phases, which means in gas phase, you have liquid phase, you have solid phase, and many chemicals do have all these properties listed thermodynamically and kinetically and the reaction rate, etc., etc. So during that days, I thought if that goes on, maybe in 10 years, we are able to predict chemical reaction, and we don't need whatever amazing experiments. Basically, we can predict everything. We don't need reactions. So that was in the 1980s. And I graduated in Germany, and at that time was coal chemistry, coal technology in the 1970s to 1980s. If you still remember, that was a time that oil was in short, and you have to find an alternative resources, and not outside fossil, just from oil to coal. So then, but at the end of the 1970s, and you start seeing that the oil is quite much more than we thought, etc., etc. So in the last 30 years, it changed a lot. Also, when Martin mentioned about my current status as a member of Club of Rome, it's similar to what in the simulation, starting from world model 1.0. During the days when we started talking about a kind of world model and tried to use all kinds of relationship in between and try to simplify the complex problems and then try to solve that with a certain pattern. And then we have this population, this production, industrial production or agriculture production, etc., etc. So with such factors, and then with the prediction also that if we go on like this as what human beings has been always, then we may have the same that this result in 50 years. And it happened. And when we go back, that's what Club of Rome has predicted with limits to growth, and it happened exactly what has been predicted 50 years ago. On the other hand, the chemical engineering side, well, I thought I'm now 70. I am out of the picture. Maybe I have nothing to do with chemical engineering anymore because, as I said, 10 years later, it should be everything solved, but it was not. So what has been done in the last 30 years is optimization. You are tuned up with a certain factors which are predetermined, and with that kind of factors, then you are actually up and down and make it more precise on that temperature, pressure, or chemicals to be reacted, etc. But not the first part. The first part is why this reaction should happen, or whether this reaction will happen or not happen. It doesn't actually. We have more prediction, or let's say we didn't make much progress. On the other hand, same as what the limits of growth has been predicted. 50 years later, we came to the same conclusion, but we didn't actually solve the first part. Why can't we find a different way if we know the end result? Because we didn't change our mindset. So AI has that kind of nature. Basically, we are trying to optimize in a system which we are used to. And with the old thinking, you will always have the same pattern, and no matter how optimization you can do, you will still get the same results. So this is the AI part. Do we have a solution? Yes, we have a solution. Not looking at what the relationships which are precise, just like the uncertainty principles. Once you want to have precision, you want to know exactly what the factory can do, you will get the little as little as possible, or as little what you can get as information. On the other hand, you want to have more information, you can't be precise at all. So, and this is happening everywhere. Then why not we just look at the state? And the state is more important than the mechanism in between. That's actually a solution on the AI, or let's say traditional AI. I call it as alternative AI. There is another way to do that. Instead of looking at the mechanism, but looking at the state. Okay, that's the AI part. The second part is biotech. The biotech is interesting because it's really related to chemical engineering. The chemical reaction, you have more complicated because there's a life in there. But at the end, we actually combined the bio engineering with chemical engineering, etc., together with life. And there are so many things unpredictable. Although those are focused on life science, they have a lot of questions, just like a Pandora box. So you open one, you analyze one, then you get more questions, one by one by one. So it is actually solved. So yesterday also I joined another meeting. It's really regarding how do you look at an energy influence on the human beings. So there's actually nobody really know that. So 1 megahertz or 12.5 megahertz, it will bring some, let's say, medical healing effect, but on the other hand, also affect the human beings. But we don't know what's the long-term effect. Nobody knows actually. So ION-EEE has something under 1 megahertz, but nothing above, or let's say in between up to 5 megahertz. But what we are doing today is much higher than that. So biotech is a way that human beings has a lot to learn. So take the example of gene-modified organism. Take an example of even COVID with mRNA, etc., etc. This kind of long-term effect, we didn't know that. We couldn't predict that because these are not in the data bank. And the same will come to the AI. Basically, AI rely on the data bank. If there is nothing happened before, or we don't know that, we can't predict. So that's the problem. Okay, so this is the part AI and biotech. I just show you there are similarities. There are also differences. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those were really interesting insights. So basically the starting state kind of is like a row of dominoes. So basically, and we can calculate well once we know the setup of the dominoes. But what if we changed the dominoes, or what if we thought about it differently? And of course, you're alluding to if you have more complex systems, you will have emergent properties that will diverge a lot from the initial state, which basically changes a lot. And you kind of dismiss that when you do these calculations. Now, we had to start with something fairly solid and static because we want to do good calculations. This will be quite the jump over to, and thank you so much, Yang Cheng, for your contribution here. It opens a lot of thoughts. This will be quite the jump over, I think, to Ms. Young Cho from Korea. But then again, maybe not, because you're going to speak to us about cooperatives, or more specifically, the Hansalim cooperative in Korea. And interestingly enough, this is also a system, a cooperative system between people that is very stable. So stability is also an interesting, let's say, trait, where systems actually can be managed and, let's say, co-steered, which is maybe an interesting other angle into this. So Dr. Mission Cho is a senior researcher at the Mosim Salim Research Institute and a guest lecturer of Seoul National University in South Korea. and looking into such things as transformative learning and socio-ecological transformation. And again, here today speaking to us about Hansalim, one of the largest multi-stakeholder cooperatives in Korea, and how it came about to become this stable and powerful, let's say, movement in Korea since about the past 40 years. I leave the floor to you, Ms. Young. Welcome.
Thank you for introducing me. And could you please allow me to share my slides? Yeah. Hello. Thank you for inviting me to this important meeting. My name is Mi Sung-jo. I work at Mosim & Salim Research Institute, which is one of the supporting organization of the Hansalim Cooperative of South Korea. Today, I will start by a brief introduction of the Hansalim cooperatives, and I'll spend some time addressing the motivations behind Hansalim's development over nearly 4 decades. I have categorized these as philosophy, economy, and governance. So in 1986, Hansalim started from a small grain store which sold just 10 products, contain organic rice and eggs, with direct trade between farmers and consumers. Their purpose was largely twofold. One, to foster organic farming that restore earth and lives, and the other to restore cooperative relationships in society. This is the article on the first page where the Hansalim people introduce themselves. Hansalim is a cooperative established by producers and consumers. The producers farm and manufacture products believing human and nature, as well as the urban and the rural area is connected in the web of life. Here I marked keywords in green. They are cooperative, producers, consumers, and values of life. Hansalim's mission is summarized as follows: save our lives at Earth through saving our food, our agriculture, and our local community. Hansalim is now one of the largest cooperatives in South Korea, as Martin said, with the consumer membership of around 900,000 households and the producer membership of around 2,300 households. Together, they operate 240 stores nationwide. In fact, Hansalim is not a single organization, but consists of 30 local cooperatives and several producers' federations. Hansalim is a multi-stakeholder cooperative, including producer members and consumer members. This slogan in the left shows the relationship between the stakeholders. Producer protect consumers' life, and consumer ensure producers' livelihood. They can reduce retail margin by direct transaction and provide proper reward to producers. As you can see this diagram, around 70% of the profits goes to producers. Moreover, this direct trade system encourages face-to-face relationships between producers and consumers. In fact, our theme is about cooperation. In fact, multi-stakeholder cooperatives are difficult to form due to conflicts of different interests. And even if they are formed, they are difficult to maintain for a long time. Nevertheless, how is it possible? How can Hansalim work as a multi-stakeholder cooperative? And how can the cooperative expand to such a large scale and be sustained for around 4 decades? I think there are 3 driving forces behind their story. They are there's philosophy, economy, and governance, and I'll look at them one by one. First, Hansalim has a powerful, persuasive, and even prescient philosophy, which has fascinated many people and gave them motivation to act. That philosophy is what we call the life movement. I will tell you the meaning of Hansalim first. In Korean, Han means great one, whole, entire universe together, and Sallim means the domestic work to revive and to give life. Hansalim as a compound of these two words means saving and caring all living beings and living together on a grand scale. The universe in a bowl of rice is a powerful symbol of the life movement. As you all know, rice is a staple food in Asia. A bowl of rice is the fruit of the universe, nature's own milk. The act of eating becomes a cosmic event, uniting people with cosmic life. A bowl of rice may be said to contain a profound truth about the universe and at the same time be full of significant for communal cooperation in society. When people encounter this philosophy, many have a heart-pounding experience and change their mindset. For example, a Hansalim farmer said, after hearing the word, the universe in a bowl of rice, my heart really raced. So I thought, I'm a person who eats the universe. Then what do I have to do? What am I responsible for? We can see this emotional experience changes the farmer's identity and gives him motivation to act responsibly. The Hansalim founders articulated their philosophy through the Hansalim Manifesto. The manifesto provided a fundamental critique of the current industrial civilization of violence and death. The manifesto emphasizes the interconnectedness and interdependence of all lives. The core idea of the life movement is a civilizational transformation toward an ecological and life-centered society. The book consists of 5 chapters. Actually, you can download the English version of this book on our website for free. However, our website is currently under maintenance, so it will be possible after November. Sorry. Anyway, many consumers reported that their views on food, agriculture, and nature have changed after they joined as Hansalim members. As you can see in this last quote, Hansalim members have a special culture to revere soil and farmers themselves tend to have high pride in their organic farming. Second, they create alternative and realistic economic systems. Hansalim people use a unique language which expressed their orientation to manage business for value and use, not for profit. They use the term product instead of commodity, supply instead of sell, and use instead of buy. Hansalim holds an annual rice price decision meeting, which is very unique. One of the Hansalim members said that the meeting is the best illustration of what Hansalim is like. Producers and consumers gather to discuss and determine the production of volume and price of the upcoming year's rice products at the meeting. This is beyond imagination in a market economy. Hansalim people invented some systems to realize the values in reality. The prior production commitment system is that each farmer is allocated a predetermined production volume for the following year and supplies through Hansalim distribution. From the standpoint of farmers, relatively high production costs can be stably compensated without needing to enter market competition. Community's transaction system is a system where farmers produce, supply, and make decisions at the community level rather than individual farms. The third, deliberative and ecological democratic governance. As a cooperative, Hansalim practices one person, one vote democracy when making decisions. Cooperative members are the owners. And one of the former executive directors said that democracy is giving a voice to those who do not have one. His statement comes in the context of ecological democracy, in which we should guarantee the rights of non-human beings. However, as you might expect, all these democratic processes are not smooth. As the number of members increases, the interest of stakeholders become more diverse, making the decision-making process more complicated and time-consuming. For example, Hansalim has spent over 17 years debating even a single issue, which is about fair trade. These controversies can sometimes become obstacles, yet other times they can ignite members' mutual learning and growth, maybe building. Sometimes someone might focus on Hansalim's achievement and call it success. However, I don't think just giving success stories help people who try to devote themselves to the cooperative movement. Hansalim has a lot of challenges and concerns. I will tell you just a few of the concerns. The first is how to include and empower the marginalized and underprivileged. That is one of Hansalim's mission. However, because of the relatively high price of organic products, the access of poor or younger citizens are limited. To solve this problem, Hansalim has tried to carry out community care programs or agriculture product voucher, but so far it is limited. The second is how to manage the tension between the social and ecological vision of the life movement and its democratic ideas. And the third issue is how to respond to the impact of climate change crisis on agricultural production. In Korea, this summer has been recorded as the longest and hottest, and it is expected to worsen in the future. Climate disasters are undermining the very foundation of agricultural production. We need to consider how we can overcome the crisis. This is the last slides of this presentation. What are the implications for cooperation toward socio-ecological transformation? First, Hansalim started with an incredibly ambitious vision from the very beginning. That was the life movement philosophy. They sought to overcome the industrial civilization of killing and death and build a life-centered ecological civilization. Second, to realize this vision, they devised an alternative economic system that integrates the cooperative model into a movement for socio-ecological transformation. Finally, all the processes are implemented in democratic ways, empowering normal people to autonomically engage in this movement. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is pretty intense. There's so much to think about here and process. And thankfully, we will have our breakout rooms to process this. So please take a few notes, everybody, and bring that in. My mind is racing as to how you can build such a community that has such long-lasting power between parties that actually have a there you can see antagonism between producer and consumer for sure, and you have this beautiful, you call it discussion, but I would say dialogue set up that lasts for decades. Of course, there's a lot of discussion when you try to take such disparate parts and make them into a whole. Very inspiring. Thank you. Now it's time for our third speaker, and it's over to Anne Snick, who is assistant thinker with a PhD in philosophy of education with a focus on ethics and epistemology. Well, those are heavy words, but what you're going to talk about is the concept of female or matrifocal money and the yin-yang relationship between these. And this was a concept that you were co-developing quite some years ago, I think. Yeah, you had a hand in it, didn't you? but then again, we create together. Myself, I'm dying to hear about this concept. So please, over to you, Anne.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody from Belgium. Honestly, the title or the topic of the presentation was not chosen by me. It was, I think, Lene who proposed it together with somebody else, and it was first called Feminine Money, and it referred to Bernard Lietard, whom I worked with together, but he didn't call it feminine, called it matrifocal. So that's how I got involved into the discussion. But in fact, I have been involved quite deeply into research of both education and money, or if you want, epistemology. How do we pass on knowledge, or how do we develop knowledge? How to live, prepare our younger generations learn as a human community, and on the other hand, how do we define value? What are our values? And money is all about value. So those are the two topics. As a member of the Club of Rome, I'm also very involved into systems thinking, so I'm always high in the helicopter. And to be honest, I did not prepare a beautiful presentation like Miss Cho did, but because I didn't know who was in the room, and I'm always afraid that I'm just gonna be talking over the heads. But to introduce this topic, of course, matrifocal stands opposed to patriarchal. Patriarchal being dominant, imposing, powerful, and I see a lot of parallel concepts, if you like. For example, if you read the book of David Wengrow and David Graeber, The Dawn of Everything, it's like a big long history where he shows that after the collapse, or you have the collapse of patriarchal imperial systems, and then humanity returns to more decentralized place-based systems, and then it becomes new imperia are emerging. But the core message, the main message that I got out of that book was that we don't have to wait for the collapse of imperia, of imperial, centralized with big palaces and big banks and big temples before we return to decentralized, place-based, nature-aligned communities. So that is an important lesson for now. We can, we have a very patriarchal, centralized, dominant, powerful system that is about to collapse and that is about to take everything along in its fall. But we don't have to wait for it to collapse before we can return to more decentralized. I'm not using the word matrifocal for that yet because there's still a lot of nuances to add. But in fact, it's already happening. The collapse is getting close enough that people are saying, hey, we could do things differently. So I'm kind of like, what is happening in Korea is an example of that. But indeed, the question is, how can we make it scale? How can we include everybody? And I think the second book that really inspired me in my work was by Jeremy Lent, called The Patterning Instinct, where it's also anthropology and history, where he compares Indo-European cultures and languages that tend towards this hierarchical, patriarchal, even colonial visions of God is somewhere above the clouds, and humans are created in the image of God, means disconnected from nature. And then we got, God gave us nature as a resource to use. Whereas the more indigenous and Oriental philosophies kept the balance between the yin and the yang. So that is also, it's historical. It was a choice. We can we can learn from each other now that we're in a global economy. So, but this patterning instinct, this strong European, if you like, this strong patriarchal view of life. We're in control of nature. We were given nature as a resource to exploit, has dramatically infiltrated our universities. It is how we define our relationship with reality. We can know reality objectively. We can control it. We can, our universities were built in the time of Newton, who thought that the world reality, he discovered some regularities in nature. So he thought the entire planet functions like a machine. You can take the machine apart, you can tweak the parts, improve them for our use, and then put them back together. We've tried that now for 200 years, and we've discovered that it doesn't work. we're tweaking it to pieces. But, you know, every part of reality is now in its own discipline with its own parameters of success and progress, like the bioengineers and like the artificial. They don't look at the impact on democracy. They're just in their own discipline with their own parameters or their own definition of progress. So that is why I work on education. We need to break that silo thinking, not by criticizing it, by adding the holistic layer again. But that's for a different workshop, if you like. And so the other thing is, of course, that we have one of the disciplines is the economy. So instead of seeing the economy as a flow, as a function of society, how do we make sure that, you know, the relationship between humans and the natural resources is optimal, and that we have access for everybody in a way that does not destroy, you know, that is the flow, that is the process of economy. And of course, to make that efficient, we have institutionalized it, both in industries and factories and companies as, you know, independent legal entities that seem to have rights in their own, and then even in, you know, academic disciplines, it has become a sphere in itself. And the same with finance. Finance is a thing in itself, pursuing its own growth, its own parameters. And so this is the systemic lock-in, that we forgot that the economy is a function, the function of how to allocate the resources on the planet for the well-being of everybody, without destroying the resources, of course, because that's not gonna create much well-being in the long term. And then, so the interesting thing is that we're now, because we're unraveling the life, you know, life on the planet, people are saying, oh, we need to rethink that economy, as you know, as we just heard. We need to rethink that, and after sustainable economy, which was mostly reduced to sustaining the extractive system, we're now into regenerative economy. So the main goal is, how can we allocate the resources in such a way that it regenerates the planet, you know, the resources of the planet, while creating well-being for everybody, while improving the well-being for everybody, because we have huge inequality, lots of stress and burnout. So we're not doing well, and we're not being our economy is not being very functional. So the next step is, we know that why is this economy so extractive? Is because, well, it's not a clear-cut causal relationship, but the money system plays a very big role in it. And I have discussed it with a group of 160 people, all coming from the financial system, and they all agreed with me. If the goal of the economy is life, to regenerate life, to facilitate transactions that restore life, the money system as we know it now, it is dominant across the entire world, is not designed for that goal. It's designed for its own growth, because it's brought into circulation as a debt. You know, banks can create money ex nihilo by creating a debt, a loan, and we all have to pay back the loan with an interest, which means that there is less money around than we collectively owe the banks, because the banks created the capital, but they did not create the interest. So we're all competing. The goal of the economy becomes to make money, to make that additional interest, to repay our loans. So that is a structural drive for exploiting each other and the planet, because we, you know, it's like Lene says, it's a zero-sum game. If I can extract money from you, I'll be able not to go bankrupt. You go bankrupt, your problem. So this is why the money system is so crucial in this transition. And we have to, again, think how we can bring the money back as a tool for those regenerative transactions, knowing that it is so institutionalized. You can't just step out and create your own reality. Well, you can do that, but you're not going to save the planet timely with that. So what Bernard Littard was looking into, he was a Belgian engineer who was into the financial sector. He was one of the co-architects of the ECU, which was the forerunner of the euro. And, you know, he was thinking, he was very smart. And then he saw crisis after crisis, monetary crisis, banking crisis, etc. So he stepped back and said, like, I must have overlooked something. I must have made an error. So he deeply studied the financial system, and the conclusion that he came to, that he found, was that the current money system is indeed too focused on power and patriarchy and the fighter and the warrior and the king, and that we forgot the more feminine side, the mother figure, the lover figure, the community figure, etc. So his solution, and he's worked all his life, was to say we need complementary currencies. We have the extractive money, and then complementary to that, and in the side of that, we create local currencies, community currencies, etc. His hope was that would bring back a matrifocal yin-yang balance. Now, meanwhile, there's a whole community that works on that, and I would also like to share some of their learnings. After the 2008 crisis, it was so clear that the banks were just very dangerous. If the banks collapsed, the entire world economy could collapse. So then we had the blockchain, and that sort of like created the hope that we could facilitate with blockchain technology, monitor financial transactions while eliminating the banks. So we got, quickly enough, we saw that this translated into Bitcoins, which was just as speculative, and just as speculative means money has a goal to increase itself, not the real economy, but this, money as a goal in itself. Depleting the real economy for financial growth. So that was decentralized money iteration 1.0. It's speculative, it's not that. Second iteration, let's try if we can use blockchain for real business-to-business transactions. So they did that. They called it, I think it's called regenerative finance. So now, okay, I don't know nothing about the technology. It's all about ledgers and transactions and all that. But indeed, now we can do transactions business to business while eliminating the control of the banks. So what they see after the second iteration is, yes, we have, like in the beer in Switzerland, with the Sardex, etc. But the impact on people and planet has not changed. So now we do direct transactions without the banks, but we're still being extractive. So now they are moving on, and this was like a meeting beginning of this summer, to what they call collaborative finance, where they say, can we design the money system in such a way that it regenerates or, serves the well-being of people and planet? So just to tell you, the technology, using technology as such is not the key, because even technology, has no ethics implied. It just follows its own, the logic that we put into it. And as long as we have an extractive mindset or a profit-driven mindset, we will design our technology in such a way. So this is where it comes really, really interesting, is that those people from the tech nerds, the financial tech nerd, they call themselves like that. So I feel free to use their terminology. They understand that the first question is, what kind of community do we want? And only then can you say what technology can help us to get there. Okay, so now they're saying, oh, we need to integrate the social sciences, and we need to integrate, the community and getting out of the tech obsession. And, again, is transcending that separatist paradigm. What kind of world do we want? And then once you agreed on that, you can go to your discipline and say, hey, I'm the tech nerd, I can program that, or whatever it is. But we need that holistic, ethical vision before we can hope to improve the system. Improve means make it better, but what is good? That is not inherent in the technology. That is not an improvement in the technology. And so to sort of like round it up to what is matrifocal, why is it matrifocal and not feminine? I think what we see, there's a lot of work that has been done, inspired, that I work a lot with, by process ecology. Robert Ulanowitz, who studied sustainable systems, natural systems, technological systems, human systems, and he comes up with again and again and again the same outcome, that sustainability, in the long run, systems can sustain themselves if they have a balance between, on the one hand, what he calls resilience, meaning the ability to explore different pathways, to be inefficient, to be creative, to be to be doing different things differently, but also on the other hand, the capacity to be efficient, to be enough mainstream. If you're all gonna be doing different things, your system's gonna stagnate. We're all gonna run, put our energy in our own overhead. So you need a little bit of mainstream, a little bit of order, a little bit of structure, to be efficient enough to reduce your overhead and to have an impact on the system. So that image is what is expressed, I think, in from patriarchal, the dominant, the masculine, arche, the power principle, the beginning and the end of everything. We move to matrifocal, and matri means, the care function, the regenerative function, the fertility, restoring that side of life, but also focal. We also need a focus in that. We also need to collaborate and share what it can mean in a place, not in a patriarchal way. We're not replacing one dominant global system with the other one, which we then call matrifocal. It's going to be patriarchal again. Think of Wengrow and Graeber. We have to go back to place-based. The planet is different in different places. The rice in Korea is not what we have, the kind of food that we have in Europe. So return to that local, place-based, regenerative earth. It has many, many faces. We reconnect with that earth. And we call it fractal. You have the little local place-based things that work, that feed feed the muscles and extract the what you call it, the things you want to get rid of, but at a larger scale, it's embedded in bigger arteries or bigger and so it's like a fractal thing, like not all just tiny little small things, but also not one huge bigger thing, but embedded in each other in such a way that the larger feeds the smaller, but also the smaller makes sure that we include everybody, not just the people connected to the big institutions and the powerful institution. And what I really, just as a final word, I would really like to share is that this is all today. We see that happening. People don't necessarily call their activities matrifocal, but if you look at it from a systemic perspective, this is what is happening. Communities are taking back control over the money flows. You see it in benefit corporations, companies that say we want to be transparent on what we do to the community. We justify to the community what we do. We had Elinor Ostrom, who had the Nobel Prize for her work on commons in 2009. We see it in regenerative companies, CEC, the Convention pour les entreprises pour le climat. They're getting together in big groups to reflect together, how can we become regenerative? We see it in steward ownership, companies that say, like, the ownership is, should be at the service of regenerating the planet. So we will restructure our company into two complementary bodies so that we can protect the company, the mission of the company, from the greed of the owners. So you see a lot of that is happening. We have community land trusts, it's really, really, really strong. So for me, that is the sign that we are now doing it, that this new movement is emerging. This matrifocal movement is emerging, that we don't have, well, it's about to collapse, but we don't have to wait until it totally collapses. And I think the main thing that we have to do now is stop criticizing the old system, but nourishing this new system, making it sound as if this is the new normal. It is already there. It is happening. There is a bifurcation. We're not sustaining the old system. We're not even doing efforts to collapse it. I don't see why you would have to do that. But we're now talking about this new, and as soon as we have this strong enough, nobody will be scared for the old one to die, because we will have the alternative.
So instead of breaking, thank you. So instead of breaking down or focusing on breaking down the old one, let's build the new one. And I'm very curious to the complementary. I mean, we're talking yin and yang. We're talking efficiency versus resilience at the same time. You can't choose, and you're not talking about them. I mean, the yin yang symbol is a bit dichotomous, right? It's black and it's white. But this would be at some point.
But it has the white inside the black and the black inside the white. In that sense, it's not dichotomous. And the shape is so beautifully. I see Iheng. Iheng's, you can probably explain that symbol much better than I can, Iheng.
Okay. Thank you so much. This is there's so much food for thought here. I don't know, my head is bursting. Here's what's gonna happen now. We're gonna do the breakouts. Would you take it away, Lena?
Yes. So I have 4 really, really cool groups here, and this is where the global meeting on Equinox goes from being a webinar to actually being a global meeting where you can meet new friends from all over the globe and discuss these very important matters. I'm giving you 20 minutes because we have had 3 amazing speakers, and I know that there's plenty to talk about. And Robert is sharing some questions here, which would be good starters. What did we just hear? What did we learn? And what would be a good question to ask the speakers? I'm sending you out into breakout rooms and see you in 20 minutes and have fun out there. And one more thing, I'm going to keep the speakers here in the main room because otherwise they're just going to keep talking and the rest of you is not going to, be able to say anything. And you want to do that. So see you in 20 minutes.
What a ride.
Yes.
Your sound on.
We still have many people in the collective room, right?
Yeah. So I bet people are in their car or bicycling or afraid to meet strangers or uncomfortable speaking English or there's
mind.
tons of reasons for staying in the nice and cozy warm place here with with the speakers and the organizers.
I see. We have even one more wanting to enter. Armin Schuster. He's speaking later, right?
Yes, Armin is going to speak in the European part.
Mm. So now we're still
Yeah,
12.
I was when I saw how the speakers are organized globally, I was like, but I'm not Eastern European.
Oh,
I
you're an honorary Eastern Asian for the morning because we brought in this whole female
Yeah.
money thing through Pindar Wong, and he was talking about the Leotard and how we need to change the money system and all these things. And as we progressed, we realized that he might not be able to join. And then I forgot how I think you mentioned it in a chat
You
somewhere.
you posted it on the exchange platform of the Club of
Exactly.
Rome, and you called it feminine money and referring
And you
to
reacted.
banality.
Yes.
And I said, well, it's not feminine, feminine masculine is more the dichotomy that Martin was talking about, whereas matrifocal is the matric, the regenerative side, but also the focal side is the balance. It's more the balance between the two. But I know when people hear matrifocal, it's immediately opposed to patriarchal. And matrifocal, it's not this it's not this opposition thinking, it's overlapping. So yeah, that's how it's like, Bernard, yes, I've been we were close friends and we have published together, we've worked together for many years. And I also know, we had our discussions, we had our struggles. And I joined the community that, builds further on his work, but also says like, okay, down the road, what have we learned from trying to do complementary currencies? It's not just here's the patriarchal system complementary. It's not working like that. We need to go further. We need to rejoin the political agenda. And Bernard, he was very much in the financial tech and in the he was this engineer. So I was often challenging him on that. So but honor to him, absolutely. He really brought it on the agenda. But it's an ongoing learning process, and it's very fascinating. And so in the Club of Rome, I'm also working with the Finance Hub. I presented this kind of thinking to the Convention des entreprises pour le climat / monde financier, the financial world in France, a group of 80 companies, and they were all really, really, they know that the system they're working in is dysfunctional. And, just telling them money is an agreement in a community. The community now wants to regenerate. We want to go towards a regenerative economy. We don't want to destroy the planet. We don't want that. The money system currently is not designed for that goal. So as a community, you have to redesign the money system. I don't have a background in finance. I know nothing about fintech. I know nothing about financial regulations or products. You are the experts, but you first have to get the goal clear. The goal is to regenerate, to facilitate transactions that, foster regeneration. And you're the financial, you do it. You have that mandate. Now figure it out how to do it. And they were like really, really, really happy to hear that. It was just empowering them. So that gave me, self-confidence, because I saw something like, how can I speak to those people? They all say, oh, Miss Snick, you haven't understood a thing. You don't know what money is. So I think I know enough now about money from a systemic point of view. It's a very powerful facilitator of transactions. But we first have to figure out what kind of transactions we want. That's the ethical question. That is the educational question. And only then can we say, now we're going to change the money system. And many people start saying, we will change the money system, as if money, is still a system on this planet that has its own, it's not just a function. It's not just a way to organize a function. It's a thing in itself. And that's the difficult part.
And the
That's
difficult, and I think, I mean, it took me a while to, I guess it did for all of us, to go from thinking of money to from coins and bills to being digital money in a credit card or a debit card, and then to the whole thing. What is money actually? I mean, it's expectations, and they represent the expectation of something being, of value, a piece of paper or some numbers in a bank account. And whenever you write an invoice, you actually add money to the system, and it's just mind-boggling once you look at money from a philosophical perspective. And then, of course, there's the zero-sum game of the money that we have now, and then a different kind of money where the money might multiply the more you collaborate with them or through them. And it was Pindar who brought this matrifocal female aspect of potential money to my attention, and who started after the last event we had talking about, so what is it that we're organizing cooperation around or cooperation through, and we're organizing it through money because it means that
I think we need to go even one step further. There was a saying that says, if the current money system is the cause of the problem, then the current money system or the money system, I mean, can also be the solution. And that is already, maybe the solution is to get rid of money, whatever, if money is a problem, then the solution is not money. The solution is getting rid of money and going back to transactions. And there's a saying that in a certain village, if a neighbor comes to help you and you give them a bottle of wine or of some flowers to thank them, they would be really, they would be offended.
Yep.
Because it's as if you're sort of like what you call it, leveling out your debt, and they
Yep.
don't want that. They want this, I've done something for you, now I can trust that in the future, if I need something, you will do it for me, without the bookkeeping, without, about, is this worth 1 bottle of wine or 2 bottles of wine? So these gift economies exist. It's just that we don't call that economy. We call that social or neighborhood or whatever. And to bring that back, saying this is the allocation of resources to the needs of people. I need help from a neighbor. That is an allocation of a resource. We don't monetize that. But because money is such a powerful thing, it seems to have become the solution to the world. I don't know, the thing in itself. If we improve money, then we will improve the neighborhood relationships, turning that around. And so more and more people are saying it's a bit in the multifocal, the multifocal economics,
the polymodern economics. I mean, that is exactly what I'm doing there. I'm looking at, so we have these 4 strata of the economy. They're already there, but we just put them in the same bowl and don't see the differences and don't use the differences that are there.
That is the danger. When we talk about money, we immediately think of a thing, a system, and not as a facilitator of flows. Right. And of course, it is difficult, because when you facilitate your flow just by trust, let's not call that money, but in the sense it is, it is the trust, the mutual trust.
Capital.
If I do something for you, I trust that you will do something back when I need you. That is, I don't know, value. That is value. And that's money value. Might be in certain, that is the value, the confidence that I have in the community, the strength of the community, the resilience of the community. It's all in there. But as soon as you materialize that in tokens or currencies or whatever, it sucks it down into this, I don't know. I see Heng thinking.
Yes, I'm trying to jump in and say, what about wisdom properties, you know. And if I look at China, basically Chinese factories have the objective to teach the other factory. This is happening today still. So 20 years, 30 years ago, when I came to China, I thought it's because of communism. They are open to every, you know, company or people who wants to build a factory. So they have the obligation to teach them. And today, even with these modern crackers, I can talk in the chemical engineering side. So you're not talking about the naphtha cracking, you're talking about the SM cracker or something. So basically what's happening is a factory, if he builds a new facilities with new capacity, and he can bring down from the other factory the whole group to help them. And he is, of course, this factory is also obliged to teach the other one. So, but there is a circulation, and there's a problem also. Chinese has become the leader in the industries. And now you need not only teaching people now about the building now, right? You're not only responsible to learn from the others. Now you are actually turned the other way around. You are going to lead the world. Means that the creation or the innovations has to happen by China, by Chinese now, and Chinese are not ready yet. Yeah, so you are in the same circle. You're helping
In
each
what
other.
ways is China not ready to
Lead the world, to lead the world in the creativity, in the innovation?
Where's the missing link, so to speak?
Because you are learning the same system. You are learning from what is known. You're not learning how to create or innovate different things, because that's first thing is you innovate, and secondly you have to invest a lot to prove that what you innovate is correct. And this is what happening in Europe, and Chinese has learned that from Europe, but now it's your turn to become the leader. So you have to go up, and then you have to pay it, and then you invest it, and then bring the human beings to another level. That is not ready yet for the Chinese.
Martin?
Yihang, you wrote an essay on this one, right?
Yeah.
About, let's say, the Chinese Taoist / Confucianist / Buddhist way of building. And you wrote quite bluntly that about year 1500, creativity stopped in China.
Yeah. Because
so now
they
you have to kickstart a system that's been dormant for 500 years? Or a value?
Well, the last, well, this is two parts. Part number one is the intellectuals have stopped performing their advisory function after Ming Dynasty. That's 1600.
Yeah.
Because the emperor just killed what he doesn't like to listen to. So he killed the intellectuals in the 1500 and 1600. And also in that period of time, as actually Chinese sent out the troops, the fleets, well, just like Portuguese and Spanish.
Brought them home, yeah.
Yeah, they brought all these to the south part of Southeast Asia, etc., etc. That was the couple, maybe around around 100 years. I would say that not even 100 years, 50 years. That 50 years has killed the intellectuals to have the. And after that, all the intellectuals have only one objectivity, is to serve the emperor, and this is number one. This is about the creativity. That's okay. Basically, we know that the intellectuals have the problem, and we know that even in the last 100 years, when Chinese intellectuals learn from Western world, and then intellectuals try to do different things. But now it's coming up is the industrial revolution. The industrial revolution is just cooperative, etc. We learn each other, we help each other. It's a gift, etc. But then you have to lead. you have to do the creation and you have to invest. You have to put the money in there.
Mm.
That is not yet. Okay, you can talk about semiconductors, etc. Yes, but the semiconductors is not in China. It's in Taiwan. It's different. It is not. It is not in China. Yeah, and etc. etc. So, but chemical engineering, I'm more referring to because it's much longer in the development. It's about 30 years now, 40 years, much longer than the semiconductors. And it's turn now for Chinese to lead. And I still see that a lot of technologies coming from Western world, in Germany, in Sweden, etc. So many. I'm still going there, and then I still see that. Well, it's failing. The Asian and Chinese failed to bring that know-how and lead the world, and
So
as a new revolution, and that didn't happen. So, but that's nothing to do with the control of your mindset. Advisor. Advisor means that that's a system. The Chinese system it hasn't brought. Yeah, it's just limited.
But again, you're being a good obedient citizen if you play that role. But basically, you don't do it out of, let's say, intrinsic motivation or anything. It's about playing the role.
They are paid by the government. So what do? They won't say anything wrong or against government. That's the problem.
If you do, I mean, you're familiar with self-development models from Keegan or Kohlberger and these people. Are you? Like the levels that you travel through as a person as you mature over time? I'm sure there are similar models in China, but have you heard of those?
Well, there's the Confucius different ages of the gentleman.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is that China kind of put a cap where you are a good citizen. You're serving the system. Questioning the system got you about a head shorter, right? And this is in the terms of self-development or the building tradition, life is about becoming self-authoring and questioning the system, seeing the system, obeying it to the amount that your heart says yes. But if your heart says otherwise, you do that instead. And that's the basis for democracy and stuff.
Yes.
It's a pretty big step. And you're kind of 180 reversing what your goal is.
And what's happening in Western world is not convincing for the Chinese to follow. That's the problem. See, China has followed that for modernization. That's what also I have written there for the last 100 years now, 100 years, and we have already the rank top 10, maybe 2, Beijing and Tsinghua University. But still, the democracy didn't come up. Why? Because what happened in Western world didn't show that the Chinese, you should do this way. No, we can't. We just can't follow that way because it's not convincing. That's a problem.
That's tough news. Yeah.
So that brings me to Korea. And I don't know if Miss Young is still with us, because I would imagine that there historically have been some structural, technological, cultural parallel tracks for China and Korea. And Korea is a democracy with a flourishing diversity of organizations, ideas, private initiative, and tons of stuff. I haven't been there. I have not been to China either. So I'm just looking at it from a European perspective. But I assume many of the roots were similar, but development took 2 different parts, or 2 different ways.
Actually, I was away for a while, so I couldn't keep the discussion, but about the political democracy. In terms of democracy, Korea has, in modern times, very dynamic history of democracy. Just people demonstrate a lot for democracy, and there was era of dictatorship for a while, and then just lots of people bleed and fight for the democracy, and then just finally Korea people achieve the democracy, I think. So yeah, our political situation is very dynamic. upside down a lot, and now we have that kind of situation now. I think they're very different from China or Japan, because China and Japan, in the two countries, the single political party have power for a very long time, but Korea, we don't. We just every 5 years we change our political party. So yeah, it's very unstable. But
Right.
yeah, but I think we have lots of progress in democracy.
Thank you. And now the breakout rooms are back, Lena.
Yes, they are. And we wonder if there are some good questions for the speakers. And I suggest that people just raise their hand if they would like to ask or on behalf of what they've been talking about.
Yes, so please raise your hands if you have reflections and questions directed to our, well, very diverse and multifaceted topics and speakers for today.
So whoever raises their hand first gets to ask the first question. That's how that works.
I'm sorry, I cannot rise.
Okay.
I cannot find this. Okay, so when I was hearing about China, I had a question like, is it possible that Chinese people do not like taking risk? Because usually if you want to break through something, you have to take some risk. Or maybe you think that risks for Chinese people with new ideas are too high. That is why they do not want to say new ideas. What do you think about this?
Maybe I can just clarify that we discussed this a little bit, and Yuri happened to join the let's say speaker group. So we spoke about where China stands today in terms of economic and technological development. Sorry, over to you, Yiheng.
Risk. I think Chinese are born gambler. They gamble a lot, really. That's we see the success people, yes, definitely, but you didn't see that maybe 99% is gone. That's not what I mentioned. It's more confound or complex on that part. So as a risk taker, I think Chinese are willing to take the risk. The question is, are you following what the central government wants? The risk is not what you take, but the risk is you have to follow the mainstream. Once you are following the mainstream, you have no risk. So you just gamble, whether you are sitting on this mainstream or on the other one mainstream. So that's gambling.
But within a certain frame.
Yes, it is within a certain frame. So you might lose totally and you might win 100%.
But only the games defined by, let's say, well, let's face it, the state.
Correct.
Any more reflections or questions? The floor is open. You're sitting here with rock stars in a panel, and you have the floor, guys. Ole, maybe.
We had a very, very interesting discussion in our breakout session about economic systems and also about cooperatives. And as it happened, Jonathan Daly could expand on the Korean experience with Hansalim. Juliana Rizescu from Romania could expand about the experience with cooperatives from the communist period in Romania, not always positive. And I, from Denmark, could expand on the problems that the great, large cooperative agricultural corporations have encountered in becoming international corporations not well suited to interaction with shareholder-based large corporations. So we had a somewhat different experiences to recount about cooperative movements in Korea, Romania, and Denmark.
I mean, the way I see it, we have different food chains, right? Grocery stores in Sweden, and the ones that are purely profit driven, they get really efficient over time.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one is more of an organism with lots of good characteristics to it, but not the bottom line necessarily, or actually by definition not, which makes the whole comparison really skewed. And I don't have a framing for this. Maybe Ms. Young would like to fill in, or Ms. Young, do you have a comment? How do you compare the profit-driven corporations in Korea that really pound that bottom line profit towards a corporation like Hansalim that has so many objectives that are trying to be balanced?
Yeah, of course, we have in Korea there are over 20,000 of cooperatives or so, and a lot of cooperatives pursue economical profits. So yeah,
Wow.
but yeah, yeah, that's true. And we have our own vision. Hansalim has our Hansalim or other part of the some of the cooperatives pursue not for the maximize the profit, but to pursue change society or change people or the economy for people and nature. So that's kind of, I think there's a power relation. Just sometimes some cooperatives pursue this kind of direction, and others pursue this orientation. And there are some tensions, and sometimes they cooperate each other to fight for the government operation, kind of. So yeah, we need this balance, I think.
Thank you. And again, everybody, if
I
you
think
have
Anna has a comment here, I think.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure if I understood correctly, but if you say bottom line, it seems to refer to, does it find, the financial profitability as the basis. But again, financial profitability in the current extractive system is putting us on a false track again. Yes, they will be more efficient, the profit-driven companies. But if you look at the larger picture, they're not regenerating us. In the short term, they will be profitable and efficient and all that. But in the long term, they're unraveling the fabric of life. So how do you calculate that? How do you calculate, profitability I understand that you want your money to be performant. You don't want to just lose it or waste it. So from all the research that I've done of the last couple of years, I think what is, for me, would be a good definition of financial performance is if your money continues to go around again and again and again to create value in the community. And we have models for that. If we look, for example, at the firefighters, squads, whatever you call, the firefighters, they have an economic function, the allocation of resources like waters and trucks and human power and all that and intelligence to the societal need of fire security. Okay, we allocate those resources to societal need. We don't ask them to be financially performant, because if we did, we would see fires everywhere. It would be very profitable for the fire squads to have fire. So there we've decided that the less they work, the better their societal function is achieved. And that is only possible because as a community, we agreed to make that financially possible. They don't go bankrupt if they don't put out fires, because as a community, we organize our financial means to make sure that we have that resource, that they're up to date, they're well paid, they're trained, etc., even if they don't work. And now we see that emerging, for example, in furniture business. You know, the less we chop trees to build chairs, the better the societal function can be achieved if we agree on the financial flows that make that possible. How can we, as a community, you know, if you earn money by chopping trees, that should be reversed. You know, you should be financially punished for chopping trees, but then you can do that because people have access to furniture, for example, or people restore furniture, or people, you know, that kind of thinking is now emerging, and it's very, very fascinating to see. But it's a new definition of what the financial bottom line is. You can't do it on the micro scale. If you
Thank
look
you.
at what can a company do at the micro scale, given the dominant extractive system, you can't. You'll go bankrupt. You'll be inefficient. The risk is too big. It's only as a community.
And that's maybe, you know, you cannot change the rules from below. So that's maybe some of the lock-in, unless you provide better ideas and structures. You're on mute, I think. Yeah, you're on mute, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah. People are changing the rules. You know,
Yes.
somebody like Patagonia is saying, you know, I will change the ownership structure of my company, and I call it steward ownership. That is innovation. That is the absolute innovation that will save the planet. Not that, you know, by making fleece sweaters out of recycled bottles. That's not going to save the planet. But saying that whatever money I make, I will reinvest it in the well-being of the planet. That is your true innovation. And this is happening. And we should stop saying that it's impossible. It is, you know, it is happening.
So actually, I think this goes out to all three of our speakers today. You've been extremely inspiring. I think there are more people than me in this conversation that really want to dig in more. So if I could ask you during the time we have left to basically just post a couple of links to where people could go dig further, if you can find any such, because I think that could be really helpful for people to expand later on. Also, we might want to toot the horn for this one again, because it has, Lena, it's your book. It has some really interesting insights, for example, into how to think about these different facets of economics, including seeing it as systems and systems of let's say, levels in the polymodern economics, which is another interesting angle into it that you touched upon earlier, Lena. Now, I know there have been groups, and I know you've come to great insights. We've heard from one, and thank you so much, Ole, for sharing what you had said. Please, the other groups, share your wisdom and insights with us.
For sure, and you're not afraid of speaking to strangers. What do you talk about?
Yeah, I think it was also one of the things that we really focused on. It was one of the last things that Anna said, and it was, and also kind of elaborating on what you just spoke about, and that is that instead of focusing on you know, the existing system and saying that it doesn't work, but focusing on some of the examples that do work, and then that it can evolve, and then it does, and that the focus changes. She just gave the example of Patagonia, which we also talked about. It's an example of something that was maybe started in the existing system and has evolved, in showing that regenerative types of organizations or structures or mindsets can exist. And I know also for myself, I'd shared that, you know, in the recent years, I worked for a prestigious British business school on executive education, and the whole mindset and mentality that's been kind of incorporated into the business models in a winner takes all approach to business and capitalism. It also is evolving. People are challenging those existing models, maybe not fast enough and maybe a little too slow, but it can happen. It can evolve.
Thank you. That is so encouraging. Also, that we don't have to reinvent or start with no wheel at all. There are wheels to spin together collectively and creating this. And I think for one, I'm very thankful, and actually this brings hope to me as a person. So thank you. Sandra, you've been having your hand up and you took it down again, but I'm sure you have something to share with us.
I was in a small group with August. Do I pronounce your name well? Yeah. And one question we have was a few, but how to influence decision makers the best way on these topics? Yeah. Anne has an answer.
The approach that I took in a recent research action research project was to show that if public decision makers or public authorities would use as the first criterion for public markets the fact that companies reinvest their profit in the collective goals, they would make a lot of money. You know, they always say, oh, but the public budgets are restricted, therefore we will give an assignment to the cheapest one, which happens to be Total Energies. Well, you lose your money because Total Energies takes the money for whatever sustainable technology and then reinvest it in oil and gas. So if you can tell them that they should use not go to private owned profit-driven companies, but go, work with companies that share your goals, the mission-driven companies, energy co-ops, food co-ops, housing co-ops, whatever. They share your goals. Their mission is to make housing, food, energy, etc., available to the community in a fair way. If you give them the assignment, the public market, they will take the money and reinvest it again. So there is your financial performance. It will be invested again and again and again to also include the people with lower incomes, to share resources, etc. So that is, and it's in their own interest. They will achieve their goals while not losing money, but having the money becoming regenerative, a virtuous circle. But this, you were asking for references. I have not written that out yet because I'm afraid that as soon as you write it out, people start treating it as here's the solutions and SNCC proposes. And it's not solutions, it's a way of thinking. It's a way of looking. And I don't know if a book or an article can. So I'm happy with everybody here in the room if we can get together and start, learning together how we can spread this kind of thinking, this way of looking at things. Let's join forces and let's try to do that together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We had another question. Ogun was asking what AI could do in the whole around the whole theme. Do I say that correct, Ogun? August?
Yes, since we have this technology, can we use it, for example, for the control of the surplus production? Because the surplus production is, it creates the waste problem, about the resources, overusage of resources problem, and the pollution problem at the end, carbon footprint, everything. In the base of it is the surplus production, producing more than needed. It creates a solution as advertising and some kind of molding, making people buying the things they do not need. So at the end, and the sum of it, it creates the whole situation. So can we use the artificial intelligence for controlling this surplus production? Then in the source of it, if we can control it, then maybe it's a crazy idea. I don't know what you think about it.
Well, according to my concept, the current AI cannot do that because you have actually started with a data bank. And that data bank is accumulating what is happening today. It didn't gives you what is supposed to be happened in future. It's a problem. And I use in that book, which we produced with Lena, a state, which means that instead of looking at what you just mentioned about pollution, or even that 5 factors which Club of Rome has presented, or in the limits of growth, that 5 factors. Instead of looking at that five factors, because each one can be optimized somehow, but destruct or bring the other problems. Or you can say that SDG 17 doesn't mean that you have to perform only one, you have to perform actually 17 altogether. Not even more than that. So I try to use another one that's actually using the state instead of looking at only the factors. So it's looking at the state, then you have actually a trust of the human beings to go through the best way of what's supposed to come. So positively, not thinking spiral down, but spiral up. Thinking for the future and looking what is supposed to become in future. So with that, and with yin and yang, which Anne has mentioned, yin 100%, there is no such thing. Yin is so in a certain percentage, but it's very difficult when we discuss Elena, this Western and East doesn't have in the Western world, you don't have that. In Chinese or in the Eastern world, we don't have absolute 0, absolute 100. There's no such thing. It's always something in brewing. That's why we have 5 elements. It's not only yin and yang, but between yin and yang is swinging in 5 elements to become unbalanced, a dynamic, which also Cho, Ms. Cho has mentioned. The dynamic is dynamism. It is. If you look at the democracy which is happening in the Western world, or even Japan, or even Taiwan, it's a mess. So what's actually Chinese will say, this is not we are going to have, but it is actually a dynamic balance somehow. So Chinese has to learn also the Western dynamism in a balance, and this is actually with uncertainty in future. Doesn't mean that you have certainty there, but you will go towards a positive way. So this is what I think. AI is not which you have today. It is actually a kind of AI not building on the data banks. It is building on a system thinking. So that's all.
And this is why it's so interesting to go around the globe, because basically no one is smart enough on their own now, are they? Thank you so much. This is pretty mind-blowing. You guys, we're nearing the end. Lene, I think, are we trying to share the word cloud first?
So we're gonna do a couple of things, because there is actually a network that you can join where we would love to host a workshop or study group around what Anne was talking about. And I think it's network.globalbildung.net. If one of the people who have it in their browser can share it in the chat, that would be great. In there is a space called What It Means to Be Human. And there will also be courses and classes. We've had that before. And I would like to add to what Anna said about companies that do other things than just seeking profit. We actually have a lot of steward ownership companies in Denmark, some of the biggest ones, including, I think, Novo Nordisk, which is now making everybody slim around the globe, and not by eating healthier, but by taking injections. So so they have to spend their money on really important stuff, and they now make so much money they can't spend all of it. So it's an interesting dilemma. I think Carlsberg and the Velux windows are the same thing. So it does exist, and it can be very successful companies. On that note, yes, Robert, if you could please share your screen with the word cloud from this session, that would be great. All right, primitive is out there. Different levels of consciousness, lack of global governance, laziness, inequalities. Those are the problems that are keeping us from cooperating better. So we will share this word cloud online later. Now it is 45 and we need to conclude this session. I would like to thank the wonderful speakers, Yiheng Cheng, Ms. Cho, and Anne Snick, for bringing these very extremely different topics together, but there is a common denominator, and I think we found it. And I hope you also found it in the dialogue. Thank you, Martin, for hosting this. And one practical note, we start again in 15 minutes, and then we'll go to Asia. And there we will hear about circles and circularity and neighborocracy, and also the Indian philosopher Krishnamurti and how he was thinking about AI from his philosophical, spiritual perspective. Looking forward to seeing you, and thank you for joining.